What is a summons in a lawsuit? I'm Kevin Kneupper. I'm an attorney at Kneupper and Covey, and I want to explain to you all what this is and show you a few examples of what a summons is in the context of a lawsuit. So you may see some of these. I do these videos about celebrity lawsuits and sort of walk through the documents in them and what's happening. A summons is something that you might see attached to the first document in a lawsuit, which is called the complaint. A complaint is just sort of this thing that the plaintiff writes that lays out all the reasons they're suing you, suing someone, hopefully not you, or all the sort of legal theories behind it, and it says why can I win a lawsuit against the person suing? The summons is something that's different from the complaint, but it is usually attached to it whenever you get, like if you're the person being sued, and a process server comes up to you to give you the documents for the lawsuit to say, hey, come to court. A summons is a thing that is created by what's called the court clerk. So any court usually has a clerk's office. These are people who are like employees of the government. If it's a state court, they work for, they could work for the county, they could work for, sometimes there's even cities, like a traffic court or something. The clerks kind of handle a lot of the paperwork. So the judges are deciding cases, they're doing the decisions, or juries are deciding cases. Clerks kind of move all the paper along. And a summons is one of the pieces of paperwork that they handle. It's a piece of paper or two that basically tells you, like, when are you going to have to come to court and what is going on with the basics of a lawsuit. They're designed for people who don't really have lawyers and may not know how the process works. So they will kind of explain a little bit about how it is. And then whenever you're suing someone, if you're the person who's the plaintiff, you have to hire a process server to go give them not just the complaint, but the summons. So it'll be like a package. And that can vary based on state or federal court. And I'm going to show you now what a couple of these look like, one from federal court and one from California state court. So you can get an idea if I reference a summons in a video, or if you hear that, if you're in a law school and you hear someone start talking about a summons, or if you get sued, then you'll know what they are and you can kind of see what they are. Okay, what you're looking at now is a summons from federal court. And this is from, you can see at the top which court issued it. Actually, if we look here first, so this is from the Western District of Pennsylvania, which is a federal court on kind of the western side of Pennsylvania. And you can see that this is like a little form number. So they're in some states and in federal court, they have a few of these where they make these forms that can be used by all the courts or can be used by people in the courts to make it a little easier, so you don't have to redo documents every time, and so that they can be kind of standardized. So this summons has kind of these names at the top, which is who's being sued. This one is for Feastables, which is Mr. Beast's sort of candy company, and they're getting sued in a lawsuit I did a video about, and you can see that this is the summons for that lawsuit. And it says, like, here's who they are, right? And then it gives them a little bit of explanation. So basically, if you don't have a lawyer and have no idea what's going on, it'll tell you at least the basics of like what you have to do. So it says a lawsuit has been filed against you within 21 days after service of this summons on you, not counting the day you received it, or 60 days if you are the United States or United States agency or an officer or employee of the United States, described in Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12, A2 or 3, you must serve on the plaintiff an answer to the attached complaint or a motion under Rule 12 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. The answer or motion must be served on the plaintiff or plaintiff's attorney, whose name and address are, and then they put in like the name, contact information for the attorney, who is for the person. Like if you're Mr. Beast's company, this is telling them, here's the attorney that you have to talk to who's suing you. And then it kind of gives you a warning that says, if you fail to respond, judgment by default will be entered against you for the relief demanded in the complaint. You also must file your answer or motion with the court. And then you can see that this was signed by, it has a clerk or a deputy clerk. And they put the seal of the court that they're from, and then they put a little electronic signature. And then after that, they have this thing that's called a proof of service. And this is not filled out because what the clerk's doing is they file this in the court system. That's why it's got this blue stuff at the top. And then the plaintiff is supposed to take this, give it to the process server, and then they check like what they did. Like, I served it at this person at this place, or I left it at their house with the person who's like old enough to not be like a 5-year-old or something who wouldn't know what it is. They have to be over 18 usually. And then I mailed them a copy too, or whatever I did. And then they have to swear under penalty of perjury. Now, you may notice a lot of this is actually like hard to understand if you're not an attorney. It kind of is actually pretty complex, but they are just quoting the stuff in the basics of the rules. So like you either have to sort of give this answer to the complaint, which is like a line by line, I admit this, I deny this, or whatever. Or there's certain types of motions you can file to dismiss the complaint, and you've got to do one or the other. I do think it would probably be hard for someone who has no idea how a lawsuit works to really understand what that is, because those are separate questions and separate video topics, I guess. So I'll show you the state court one in California, and you can see a different way of how a state decided to write their summons form. So this is the California version of the form. One thing I like about California actually is that they do try to make their stuff. They have a ton of forms, and they do that to make it easier for people who aren't lawyers to try to handle their cases. It doesn't make it super easy, but it compared to trying to be your own lawyer in like a federal court in California, it is a lot easier to do that because it's just like they'll have little check boxes and things, and they do try to make it easy to understand. You can see one aspect of this is that it's like they translated it into Spanish because there may be people who, especially in California, who don't speak English. And you can see this one is from Austin McBroom is getting sued by Jarvis, who's another YouTuber right now. So I had this from doing a video about that. And they try to give you like an answer. They say they do the same thing. They say, notice you have been sued. The court may decide against you without your being heard unless you respond within 30 days. Read the information below. You have 30 calendar days after this summons and legal papers are served on you to file a written response at this court and have a copy served on the plaintiff. A letter or phone call will not protect you. Your written response must be in proper legal form if you want the court to hear your case. There may be a court form that you can use for your response. You can find these court forms and more information at the California Courts Online Self-Help Center. And then they give them a URL, it actually looks like this is in the file, like electronically, so you can click on it. Your county law library or the courthouse nearest you. If you cannot pay the filing fee, ask the court clerk for a waiver form. If you do not file your response on time, you may lose the case by default, and your wages, money, and property may be taken without further warning from the court. There are other legal requirements. You may want to call an attorney right away. If you do not know an attorney, you may want to call an attorney referral service. If you cannot afford an attorney, you may be eligible for free legal services from a nonprofit legal services program. Then it gives them like contact information for these nonprofits that might help them. And then it says, note the court has a statutory lien for waived fees and costs on any settlement or arbitration award of $10,000 or more in a civil case. The court's lien must be paid before the court will dismiss the case. And then you can see they put the name and address of the court. They put the case number. They also give the name and address of the attorney. Again, the court clerk in state court would sign this in California. And then you can see that they have these other forms that the plaintiff is supposed to use to serve the complaint, and they've got boxes to check for what they did. I will say, like, this is part of why I like California's forms a lot better, is because, one of the things you don't realize really as an attorney is like how many people aren't able to get attorneys. And this summons here is actually, I think, a lot better at explaining it in plain language and making sure that you understand stuff. So you're not sitting here and going like, what's a motion to dismiss? What's an answer? What's a default? Like, they're kind of telling you straight up, like, hey, you could lose, it could have consequences, whatever. Different states are going to have different things, but this is, I think this one is actually a pretty good sort of like explanation of like what they're trying to tell you. Trying to give you a warning. They're trying to make sure that you know that there could be a bad thing that would happen if there's a lawsuit filed. And in California, they go a few steps further and try to help you either find an attorney or know, like, you can go to the library, you can go to these self-help things and try to get all these forms and try to do it yourself if you have to. So, yeah, so those are just what they would look like and what a summons would be. It's not a super important document as the lawsuit proceeds, but it is kind of an important document for letting people know their rights. And if you see one like attached to something, this document will tell you some key dates, but it's the real key part of what you would look at if you're ever sued is the complaint, and maybe some of these self-help things if you don't have an attorney. If you like the video or found it useful, go hit subscribe. You can get videos from me that may be on legal questions or kind of like a YouTube law school, I guess is what I'm trying to do here, I guess, so people can learn. If you're going to law school, you might learn a little more about what you're trying to learn there, or just crazy celebrity lawsuits that I think are actually good sort of teaching methods to let people know how the law works and to get into some interesting topics in my view. Or some people may think it's boring, but hopefully you didn't watch this far if you find it boring.